Hello everybody, welcome in to Trekalicious, where we are going into round number 6 of the Le Mans Ultimate Sprint GT3 Championship. We are headed to the Monza Curva Grande circuit, ignoring the first chicane entirely and blasting down to where the first corner will be the right-hander, known as the Curva Grande. Round 6 tonight. Into the second half of the championship we go. And we have had some great bit of action up until this point. Let's see what Monza will provide tonight. Thank you, Mr. Beachley, for the hydrate. Cheers, my friend. Let's head to Monza and see how the qualifying goes tonight. Odd drivers, or I should say odd numbered drivers out first. I don't want to presume anybody's odd, of course. I certainly am, but I'm not out on track right now. Anyway, the odd numbered drivers out on track. There we go, now it's correct. Ricardo Rivera in the Lamborghini, weaving his way around, trying to get some temperature in those Goodyear tires. Welcome in, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Happy to have you here on your Tuesday. We get going with 20 minutes of qualifying. The first 10 minutes will be for the odd-numbered drivers, and then we will have the evens go out. Ricardo Rivera going for his first lap attempt. No first chicane tonight, using the Curva Grande circuit, where the first real braking zone will be the Della Raja chicane, the second chicane usually around the track. And now as Ricardo Rivera heads into the Lesmos, can't quite get a purple sector on the board. That belongs to Grant Lucarelli in the number 11 Aston Martin. Still lots of track left, most of it with the pedal to the floor. And after we head through the second sector timing charts, Ricardo Rivera does get the fastest second sector on the board, going through the Ascari chicane. No dramas there for the Lamborghini on home soil. Grant Lucarelli in front of him, punching a big hole for the Lamborghini to try and take advantage of. And now the final corner, the Parabolica. Long, sweeping right-hand corner, turning the driver 180 degrees around. And Ricardo Rivera comes to the line, and he gets the fastest time on the board. It's a 1:40.074. What can Dr. Porkchop do? Just exiting Ascari now. He's got the Lexus of Jeremy Wasson behind him, as 6 drivers get their laps on the board. We will wait for the remaining odd-numbered drivers to cycle on through. Dr. Porkchop will be the first one across the line, and the 71 goes into the top 5. Jeremy Wasson goes into third. He will get ahead of Lucarelli and behind Zach Terrell in the 33 Mustang. The Lexus of Brian DeSantiago exiting the final corner. Now it's just a blast to the line. Where will Brian find himself as he comes up to the line? He gets a lap on the board ahead of Chris Laurandi, and just a few thousandths of a second behind Leo Polanco. So Jake Terrell couldn't get a valid lap on the board on his first flying lap attempt. Crosses the line now, and he goes into 4th ahead of Lucarelli. Behind Wasson, now gets shuffled down to 5th, with Lucarelli moving up to the front row. What can Leo Polanco do after getting shuffled down to 9th? He gains a few places and goes to 7th place. So now Jeremy Wasson with his second attempt. He now gets moved down to 4th. Gets an improvement in Sector 1, a little down on his time in Sector 2. And gets a personal best Sector 3. Still about 2.5 tenths behind Zach Terrell in 3rd. He's got the Aston of Dr. Porkchop ahead of him, punching a pretty decent hole, with the Aston Martin of Dr. Porkchop sitting in 9th at the moment. Just 7 milliseconds ahead of Chris Laurandi. Zach Terrell just rolling out of the pits. Zach Terrell, that is, as Jake Terrell improves up to 3rd. And at the moment, we have an all-Terrell second row. As Gomez Beira crosses the line, he will sit in 6th. Can't improve on his time in the 2nd and 3rd sector. Needs about 4 tenths if he wants to get into the top 5. Time ticking down for the odd-numbered drivers. Just 2.5 minutes left in their session. As it stands, Ricardo Rivera on top by about 9 tenths of a second. Lucarelli occupies that 2nd place position. Then you have Jake Terrell in 3rd, Zach Terrell 4th, Jeremy Wasson 5th, Javier Gomez Beira in 6th, Leo Polanco 7th, Brian DeSantiago 8th, Dr. Porkchop 9th, and Chris Laurandi in 10th. But we still have the even-numbered drivers to go in the final 10 minutes of this session. Bader going around the final corner. He will cross the line before the checkered flag for the odd-numbered driver, so he'll have one more go at finding a better lap than he has at the moment. And unfortunately, he's off to the side of the road, out of fuel, as Chris Laurandi moves his Mustang up a couple of places to 8th. So Lucarelli returns to the pits from 2nd. Ricardo Rivera gets a personal best Sector 1 on the board, looking to improve that benchmark, with still some drivers to run in the even numbers. Can he put a little bit more distance between himself and the rest of the field. A little bit slower than his personal best in Sector 2. Can he make up that lost time in the final sector? Now just one corner to go. Cheers, Mr. Freeman, for the hydrate. With Rivera now punching it all the way to the line, and he is down on his time, so he will just return to the pit lane. Jake Terrell also returns to the pits, so he will not be able to improve from third. Can Leo Polanco get any higher than 7th? Yellow Sector 1, green Sector 2, and it's an improvement of his time, and he gets ahead of Gomez Beira. So Leo Polanco moves up a place to 6th. Brian DeSantiago, the last of the odd-numbered drivers out on track. Improvements in Sector 1 and 2. Now just one braking zone and one corner left for Brian DeSantiago to try and shuffle up higher on the grid order. About a 10th behind Chris Larandi, ahead of him in 8th. And then needs another half a second to get to Gomez Beira in the 555 BMW. So DeSantiago to the line. How high can he go? He gets ahead of Larandi and moves up to 8th place. About 25 milliseconds behind Javier Gomez Beira's time. So now the even-numbered drivers get going, and Justin Beachley leads the way in number 18 AMG. Coming up to the Della Raggia chicane, nice and tidy, avoids all of the big sausage curbing. And it's the same story into the first Lesmo. Nice and tidy. This is an important exit. Don't want to run wide and kick up any gravel. Pretty lengthy straightaway, separating Beachley from the Ascari chicane. Heavy on the brakes, down a few gears, and needs to pick the apex just right. Heavy over the inside curbing, but the AMG can take it. Nice and flat through the final part of Ascari, and it is a blast down to the final corner. The Parabolica remains, slings it in, and trying to get on the power as early as possible. It's a run down to the line for Justin Beachley. How high can he go? He will get ahead of Larandi and move up to 9th place. Mason Perchalski gets into the top 5, up to 4th place, as Edward Pena just gets a valid lap on the board for the time being. Not far off of Dr. Porkchop's effort, as Rahil Naidu gets ahead of Porkchop, up to 12th. All the AMGs have emerged in the even-numbered session, with Yusuf getting inside the top 10 up to 8th. So he will shuffle down. Gomez Beira and Brian DeSantiago into 10th. Mason Perchalski sits in 3rd place in the championship. Currently has 4th place But the 3 drivers ahead of him all completing their qualifying session earlier on. So it's just the number 10 Aston Martin that can try and shuffle up the order inside the top 3, about 2.5 tenths down on Jake Terrell, the driver right in front of him, for a spot in the top 3. So out of the final corner comes the Aston Martin, and he does improve past Terrell by about 1/10 of a second. Up next, Grant Lucarelli, and the gap is just 29 milliseconds between the 2 Aston Martins. Beachley improves to 7th, as does Pena. Gets an improvement on the board, gets inside the top 10 to 9th. Gets shuffled down to 10th, with George Elmer getting a good lap on the board. Puts his 22 Mustang up to 9th. As Pena has to cut across the chicane, he will have to go around and start another lap here. With Rahil Naidu pushing on in the lone Porsche on the grid. So up to the Ascari chicane comes Rahil Naidu. Very challenging sector of the track. Need to get every apex right to maximize the lap time. And especially the exit, as yet another straightaway separates the exit of Ascari from the Parabolica braking zone. How high can Rahil Naidu get his Porsche? Currently sits in 14th, as Brian DeSantiago ahead of him by about 0.4 of a second. And Naidu gets to 10th. As George Elmer gets into the top 5. Great lap from the 22. So George Elmer sneaks into the top 5, and off the track he goes. That might be the session done for the Mustang, as back to the pits goes Elmer. So Mason Perchalski slower than his personal best in Sector 1 and 2. Needs 29 milliseconds to get ahead of Grant Lucarelli to find himself on the front row. And he's drifting through the Parabolica, and into the wall goes the Aston Martin. And he is just parked up on the side of the road, and back to the pits he goes. They're now down to just 3 drivers out on track remaining. Justin Beachley in 9th, Naidu in 11th, but he's about to finish his lap. We'll see if he can get an improvement on the board. It's looking good for now. He does get up to 9th, gets ahead of Justin Beachley and Leo Polanco. Justin Beachley with a green Sector 1 on the board, currently sitting in 10th. Needs less than 1/10 to get ahead of Rahil Naidu. And in turn, he will also get by Jeremy Wasson, because they have an identical lap time set in 8th and 9th place. So just the final corner left for Justin Beachley. Checkered flag is out. Looking good for Justin Beachley. He gets to the line and he goes all the way up to 5th. Big jump from the number 18. As Rahil Naidu, the last driver on track, who can have a say about the standings. Down on his times in Sector 1 and 2, and he will just return back to the pits. So that is the grid set for the 40-minute race up ahead. Starting from 16th, we'll have Dr. Porkchop in the number 71 Aston Martin. He will share the 8th row with Chris Larondi in the 317 Mustang. Good luck, Ricardo. Hope you have a good race.
For a race start.
And good luck to everyone else. So going further through the grid, Brian DeSantiago will be next in the 777 Lexus. He will start from 14th. And up ahead of him is the 555 BMW of Javier Gomez Beira. Starts from 13th. Then in 12th is Edward Pena in the number 50 AMG. He will share the 6th row with Leo Polanco starting from 11th in the 51 Ferrari. Just in the top 10, you have Rahil Naidu in the number 2 Porsche, with Jeremy Wasson just ahead of him in 9th. Well, I say just ahead of him. They had an identical lap time in qualifying. Wasson set his first, so he will start ahead of Naidu on the 5th row. Then you have Zaif Yusuf in the number 30 AMG starting from 8th. Zach Terrell ahead of him in 7th in the number 33 Mustang. George Elmer starts from 6th in the 22 AMG, or excuse me, the 22 Mustang, with Justin Beachley starting ahead of him in 5th in the number 18 AMG.
Formation lap has started.
Formation lap underway. Jake Terrell gets rolling from 4th in the number 83 AMG. He shares the 2nd row with Mason Perchalski in the number 10 Aston Martin. And on the front row, we have Grant Lucarelli starting from 2nd in the number 11 Aston Martin. And Ricardo Rivera with another pole position to his name this season, looking to get a 5th race win on the night. He is in the 53 Lamborghini, and he leads the 16 car grid out on the formation lap. To the line we go. No usual turn 1 shenanigans, as we often hear in sim racing, as Curva Grande is now turn 1 with the Della Raggia chicane, the first braking zone of the night. Green flag waves, and it is going to be a long sprint all the way down to that Della Raggia chicane, and Jake Terrell has a great run on the front row. He gets ahead of Mason Perchalski already, and he looks to gain on the leaders. Grant Lucarelli ahead of Ricardo Rivera. He's on the outside, Rivera on the inside, and Lucarelli sweeps in front of Ricardo Rivera for the race lead. That's the Ferrari of Leo Polanco off in the gravel in the background, and into the first braking zone we go. Lucarelli leads. Jake Terrell up a couple of places. Ricardo Rivera, oh my goodness, Ricardo Rivera drops back to 3rd. Mason Perchalski hanging on to 4th place. Zach Terrell with a good start gains a place on fellow Mustang driver George Elmer. Justin Beachley, unfortunately, dropping out from the top 5. He is in 8th, and he is the lead trio of AMGs. He leads from Yusuf and Pena, who's under pressure from Rahil Naidu, looking to get a spot back in the top 10. So in a straight line, the Porsche can't quite keep up with the AMG. We'll see if it's any different at the front of the field, as Jake Terrell has Ricardo Rivera all over his bumper, and it is a long run down out of the Parabolica into the Della Raggia chicane. To the inside goes the Lamborghini. And ahead of the AMG he goes. Now, can Jake Terrell use the slipstream of the Lamborghini to fight him back into the braking zone of the chicane? Oh, and nearly into the back of the Lamborghini goes Jake Terrell, having to go heavily onto the sausage curb, and now Mason Perchalski and Zach Terrell getting very close to the back of Jake, holding on to that final podium position. Jeremy Wasson running a touch wide. He's going to lose a place to both Justin Beachley and Zaif Yusuf. The two AMGs get through the Lexus, so he will tuck back in behind Zaif in the number 30. The Fast and Furious themed Lexus will have some work to do here with the pair of AMGs getting through, as George Elmer under pressure from Justin Beachley, looking to get back into the top 5 where he started. Yusuf hoping to follow him through. So now Rivera on the back of Grant Lucarelli for the race lead. Can he get the position like he did from Jake Terrell on the previous lap? No chicane to worry about. Into the Curva Grande we go. Rivera behind Lucarelli into the Della Raggia chicane. Does he think about a dive down the inside? Not quite close enough to do it on this lap. He's going to have to think about another opportunity to get by the Aston Martin. Mason Perchalski staying close to Jake Terrell for that final podium position. Zach Terrell in the Mustang not too far off, and it's a pretty big train developing behind the 83 AMG in that podium place, all the way back to Justin Beachley and even Zaif Yusuf. The Porsche of Rahil Naidu getting into the frame as well. Down to one of the many back straights. We go around Monza onto the main straight. Mason Perchalski dropping back a touch from Jake Terrell, but he gets a good exit out of the Parabolica, hoping to stay as close as possible to the AMG and pick up a slipstream. Ricardo Rivera got through Grant Lucarelli, so the 53 Lamborghini back into the race lead. And Mason Perchalski reestablished the grid order as it started. Rivera back into the position he started, which moves Grant Lucarelli back to second. But at the moment, Jake Terrell holding on to that final podium position. Saif Yusuf dropping a touch back from Justin Beachley. Or no, it's Justin Beachley who has gone to the back of the grid, excuse me. Something has happened there to the number 18 as we see Jeremy Wasson going wide. On the exit of the second Lesmo, Brian DeSantiago in the sister Lexus looking to close in, and he in fact gets ahead and into 9th place. And back right on the attack is Jeremy Wasson. He wants the place back. And not into the Parabolica, though. He's going to try and fight it all the way down the lengthy straightaway. He might not even have to fight it. Brian DeSantiago drifts a touch wide and easily hands the inside to the 69 Lexus. Or was that just a trick from Brian DeSantiago to now have the slipstream down the main straight and into the braking zone of the Della Raggia chicane? He pulls to the inside of the Curva Grande. And already getting ahead on the exit of the Curva Grande, but Jeremy Wasson's gonna fight it back. He's got the inside for the first part of the chicane, but he is gonna drop back behind the 777 Lexus and try to fight for 9th in another spot of the in another part of the track. So Rivera, after getting the race lead back, able to pull out a pretty good 2.8 second gap over Grant Lucarelli. And Grant Lucarelli has fallen back just a touch. Jake Terrell within touching distance now, within a second of the number 11 Aston Martin. Then you got Mason Perchalski in 4th, Zach Terrell in 5th, George Elmer 6th, Saif Yusuf in 7th, Raheel Naidu runs in 8th place, Brian DeSantiago 9th, Jeremy Wasson rounds out the top 10, but that might change as Edward Pena tries to get around the outside of the Parabolica. He's got the grip, he's gonna try to hold on with the momentum. They're going to go side by side all the way down the main straight. In the background there, you see Leo Polanco under pressure from Dr. Porkchop as Edward Pena gets in front of the Lexus. But that will only benefit Jeremy Wasson as he now has the slipstream of the AMG right in front, pulling to the inside of Curva Grande. But Edward Pena able to hold it nearly flat, wiggling the back end of that AMG as he fights for grip, but stays ahead into the braking zone of the Della Raggia chicane, and Dr. Porkchop, Leo Polanco, and the BMW of Gomez Beira getting very close. Justin Beachley in the mix, as well as Chris Larandi. And it's the BMW who will drop back behind Larandi and Justin Beachley. Two separate trains going on here. We got one at the front of the field and one at the back here. So Jeremy Wasson hopes to get a top 10 position back from Edward Pena in the 69 Lexus, as Brian DeSantiago is trying to close the gap on Raheel Naidu in the 777 Lexus and try and get an 8th place finish on the night. Mason Perchalski stays within touching distance of Jake Terrell for that final podium position, but just not quite close enough to challenge him into the Della Raggia braking zone. At the same time, he's pulled out a pretty decent gap over Zach Terrell behind. The Mustang used to be right on his bumper, applying heavy amounts of pressure to the back end of the Aston Martin, but can breathe a little more comfortably with a 1.6 second gap to Zach Terrell. He's got the Mustang of George Elmer not too far behind him, about 1.3 seconds down the road. As Ricardo Rivera has pulled out a 5-second lead over Grant Lucarelli, Jake Terrell has closed that gap into second place sitter, down to less than 1 second. So Terrell sits in the middle of an Aston Martin sandwich, with Grant Lucarelli in second ahead of him, and Mason Perchalski in fourth behind. Gonna check back in at this battle for 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. Justin Beachley able to get through the trio of cars, so he now sits in 12th. Dr. Porkchop in 13th. Larondi directly behind him in the Mustang. Leo Polanco down a few places to 15th. And Gomez Beira in the BMW. Still right within touching distance of the cars ahead. Mustang unable to use the slipstream of the Aston Martin for a good effect into the braking zone, and now Leo Polanco all over the back of Chris Larondi for 14th place. Trying to challenge into the braking zone of Ascari, but those two pretty evenly matched going into the braking zone. Can Polanco get a good exit in the 51 Ferrari? Now lining up the move. Larondi takes the defensive line to the inside, doesn't give the slipstream to the Ferrari, and pulls back onto the racing line with nowhere for Leo Polanco to go to try and challenge that position. Larondi staying down the inside once again. Polanco will have to try and keep the grip around the outside. Can't do so. Will have to tuck back in behind the Mustang once more. Goes to the inside of the Curva Grande, but just can't quite get side by side enough with the Mustang to challenge into the Curva Grande, and now into the braking zone. And once again, Leo Polanco, no room through, but on corner exit into the Lesmo. He might just have a good run on the Mustang, but once again, on corner exit, the Mustang super strong with that naturally aspirated V8 at the front, just powering Chris Larondi out of the corners, just enough for Leo Polanco not to be able to fight him into the braking zones. Rivera nearly 7 seconds ahead of Grant Lucarelli. Jake Terrell still rounding out those podium positions. He's up a position from where he started. Traded places with Mason Perchalski, who now sits in 4th place. Then you have Zach Terrell in 5th and George Elmer in 6th. The gap opening up between Elmer and Terrell, and Zaif Yusuf in the 30 AMG has closed in on George Elmer in 6th. Less than half a second separating these two, but Yusuf runs a bit deep on the exit of the Della Raggia chicane and just can't keep the speed into the braking zone of the first Lesmo to try and challenge George Elmer for that spot in 6th. Justin Beachley, with some clean air, was able to make use of it. He's now on the back of Edward Pena for 11th place, the 2 AMGs looking to get a position in the top 10. Jeremy Wasson holding on to that place in the 69 Lexus. Edward Pena will be happy that he's close enough to the Lexus to get at least a little bit of a slipstream help, because Justin Beachley is right on the back of the number 50. Jeremy Wasson going slowly, exiting the Parabolica. Is he having to save a little bit of fuel in the Lexus? The pair of AMGs go through, and Justin Beachley gains 2 places. Almost just like that, but Edward Pena able to sweep around the outside to hold on to what is now a spot in the top 10. While the 2 AMGs continue to battle, we can see that Terrell and Perchalski have swapped places from the start. Zach Terrell up a couple of places from his starting place. Yusuf Naidu gaining spots inside the top 10. Brian DeSantiago up 5 places from where he started to sit in 9th. Edward Pena up 2 places to sit in the top 10. Justin Beachley had that top 5 start, but had a couple of moments to see him drop back down the grid. But he is trying to make up those places and get back into the top 10. He's got the inside of the Parabolica, and he goes through. Edward Pena now has the slipstream as the 2 AMGs will run to the Della Raggia chicane. Pena using the slipstream to good effect, tucks to the inside of the Curva Grande, forces Justin Beachley their long way around, and the AMGs seem very unsettled through the Curva Grande. And I certainly would not want the outside line. And Edward Pena with a great defense, able to hold on to that spot in the top 10. Now Jeremy Wasson, after seemingly letting the 2 AMGs through, maybe he was lifting off for track limits. Another thing could be possible. That's George Elmer just ahead of the 2 AMGs now. So Elmer was running in 6th, now he sits in 9th. That'll move Yusuf up to 6th, Naidu sits in 7th, and Brian DeSantiago up another position to 8th. And exiting the Parabolica, Beachley behind the AMG of Pena. He's got the Ford not too far ahead of him, helping out in the slipstream department just a touch. But it's Justin Beachley who will really benefit being right behind the bumper, but he's having to lift a lot more than Edward Pena, and it's Jeremy Wasson who's gonna have a look down the inside, not quite close enough to go side by side with Justin Beachley. He will have to try and fight with the number 18 in a different part of the track, just a different lap, just not quite a big enough overlap between the Lexus and the AMG of Justin Beachley. So now the two AMGs close as always. We will check back in with the leaders as Justin Beachley did get through Edward Pena there at the Parabolica. Mason Perchalski right on the back of Jake Terrell for that final podium position. And once again, the two AMGs trading places. Beachley gets the position into the Parabolica, but Edward Pena takes it right back with the slipstream, and Jeremy Wasson once again thinking about the move down the inside, but not side by side enough once again to get the move done past Justin Beachley. So hard to take our eyes off this battle. Pena a bit sluggish on the exit of the second Lesmo. Justin Beachley getting closer and closer. Jeremy Wasson right there as well in the 69 Lexus. And exiting Ascari, Edward Pena tries to break the toe as much as possible. Justin Beachley to the inside of the Parabolica, tries to get the move done once again. But it might just be best for Justin Beachley to hang back, because Edward Pena seems to be getting him every single time that they get to the Curva Grande. And once again, as we get to the end of the straight, Edward Pena goes through down the inside, slowing Justin Beachley down into the grasp of the Lexus. But he can't find a way through. Edward Pena has to cut through the chicane. Will he slow down, or is he happy to just take the track limit cut there? Seems like he's happy to take it because he wants the track position over Justin Beachley. As now into Ascari we go. Justin Beachley down the inside. Jeremy Wasson is just seeing an AMG wall develop right in front of him. Edward Pena gets shuffled onto the gravel on the first part of Ascari, losing the place to Justin Beachley and Jeremy Wasson. So Beachley getting into that top 10 position. Wasson now in 11th. Edward Pena in 12th. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Jake Terrell got ahead of the number 11 Aston Martin to take second place. Ricardo Rivera continues to build the gap. It's now 13 seconds between the leader and second place sitter Jake Terrell. So underneath the old banking and into the Ascari chicane we go. Lucarelli now under pressure from Mason Perchalski. Jake Terrell will try and use the battling Aston Martins to his advantage to try and build a gap to Lucarelli in third. And Lucarelli's wide, exiting the Parabolica. The inside belongs to Mason Perchalski. Slipstream not really favoring either one of the drivers, with Jake Terrell being 1.5 seconds up the road. Mason Perchalski gets ahead, but now it's Grant Lucarelli who has the slipstream. He peels to the inside of the Curva Grande. Will Mason Perchalski be able to keep the grip around the outside? Really pushing Lucarelli to the inside, and they are going to continue to go side by side all the way through, and Mason Perchalski breaks early and gets behind Grant Lucarelli. All this battling has allowed Jake Terrell to escape about 2 seconds up the road now. So he will try to solidify that second place position. Jeremy Wasson and Edward Pena side by side, but Pena got through the Lexus after getting bumped down just a couple of laps ago. Wasson is really pushing hard in the Lexus. He wants to get by Edward Pena to try and have a shot at Justin Beachley for a spot in the top 10. All this battling is allowing Gomez to close in the 555 BMW. Justin Beachley escaping up the road, enough to help Jeremy Wasson in the fact that Edward Pena won't have a car punching a hole in the air directly in front of him. Two AMG's equally matched machinery. Now it's Lexus versus AMG. Wasson versus Pena. Down the main straight we go, heading into the Curva Grande. Can Jeremy Wasson close in using the slipstream? He's getting closer and closer. Dives to the inside. Forces Edward Pena to go the long way around, but he is able to keep the grip on that long side of the track and hold on to 11th place. He tries to get the over-under done and into the Lesmo braking zone. He just can't get deep enough to get ahead of the AMG. Exiting the second Lesmo though, Jeremy Wasson thinking about a look into the Ascari chicane. Just peeling out of the slipstream, thinking about sending it down the inside of the AMG, but thinking the better of it, trying to line up the move into the Parabolica. Pena breaking the slipstream, taking the outside line. They're going to run side by side all the way down to the braking zone of the Parabolica. Can Jeremy Wasson get ahead? down the inside. Pena fighting for grip around the outside of the Parabolica, but it looks like the AMG has the grip under it to hold on to that place. And now, once again, the Lexus will have the slipstream going into the Della Raggia chicane. Not quite as close as he was on the previous lap is Jeremy Wasson to fighting Edward Pena for that place, but he gets a great run out of the Della Raggia chicane into that first Lesmo, nearly having a good overlap with the AMG to fight for that place. The Lexus just has some good straight line speed, but the AMG has the advantage on the brakes, as Edward Pena is just able to confidently stay on the racing line and stay ahead into all the braking zones. It's going to be the similar situation here as it is on the previous lap. They're going to run side by side through the Parabolica, but Edward Pena happy to be around the outside with the grip. But this time, Jeremy Wasson, carrying a lot more speed through the Parabolica, gets ahead of the AMG, so he will have 11th place. Edward Pena nearly pulling the NASCAR strategy and bump drafting the Lexus into the Curva Grande. He is bump drafting the Lexus. And just peels out before the Curva Grande. But Jeremy Wasson up to 11th now. And a mistake from Edward Pena. Do they have an incident? As always, just take my eyes off the battles for just a split second. Take a look at the gaps and everything seems to unfold. Wasson momentarily getting through, but Pena takes the place back. And all this battling has really allowed Gomez Beira to close in the 555 BMW. Into the final 6 minutes we go. Rivera in the lead by 17 seconds over Jake Terrell. Lucarelli holding on to 3rd place. Mason Perchalski in 4th. Zach Terrell in 5th. Yusuf sits in 6th. Rahil Naidu in 7th place. Brian DeSantiago in 8th. George Elmer in 9th. Then you have Justin Beachley holding on to the final spot in the top 10. This is the battle for 11th between Edward Pena and Jeremy Wasson in the Lexus. Gomez Beira closing in the BMW with Dr. Porkchop in 14th and Chris Lorandi in 15th. Unfortunately losing Leo Polanco in the 51 Ferrari. Jeremy Wasson a little hesitant on the throttle there, exiting the Della Raggia chicane as he continues to try and push on and steal that 11th place away from Edward Pena. He's close once again into the braking zone of Ascari. But as we've seen on a number of occasions, the AMG confident on the brakes, and a bit of a slip from the Lexus allows Gomez Beira to close right into the Lexus. So Pena leads from Wasson, who leads from Gomez Beira in the battle for 11th place. Take a quick look at the virtual energy tanks. At the moment, it looks like everyone should be able to make it to the end with the fuel that they have left. Just a couple of laps remaining. Wasson deep into the first part of the Della Raggia chicane. The BMW Gomez Beira takes full advantage and goes to the inside of the first Lesmo, but the switchback is on from Jeremy Wasson. He tries to fight back into the second Lesmo, but not a lot of room there for the Lexus to accelerate, and the 555 BMW moves up to 12th. And now the BMW and the Lexus are going to run side by side, going into the braking zone of the Parabolica. Lexus now around the outside, trying to keep the grip and trying to get 11th place back. Ryan DeSantiago back in the pits. The 777 was running in 8th place, and now having to take a trip down the pit lane. As the BMW and Lexus side by side, Jeremy Wasson gets ahead into the Curva Grande, so the Lexus gets back up to 12th. Gomez Beira will have to fight in the BMW in the last minute and a half that we have left. But Jeremy Wasson gets back through to 11th. So maybe DeSantiago just not comfortable with the amount of virtual energy he had left, having to go to the pits and top back up. He comes out behind Dr. Porkchop in 14th. But it's Ricardo Rivera who is on his final lap of the evening. Slightly sluggish start from the number 53 Lamborghini after qualifying on pole. He dropped back to 3rd, but in the opening few laps, retaking the race lead and building a dominant gap over the rest of the field. 20 seconds separates Ricardo Rivera in the Lamborghini on home soil here at Monza, going through the Parabolica for the final time, flashing the lights, saying hello to all the fans. The checkered flag awaits for Ricardo Rivera to take race win number 5 of the season. Well done, Ricardo. A race win for round 6 belongs to you. As behind him, Jake Terrell started from 4th, got ahead of the pair of Aston Martins to finish in 2nd place. Lucarelli hangs on to 3rd, ahead of Mason Perchalski in 4th place. Zach Terrell will be the lead Mustang, finishing inside the top 5, with Zaif Yusuf taking the checkered flag in 6th. Naidu in the number 2 Porsche finishes in 7th, with George Elmer crossing the line in 8th. Justin Beachley, good recovery to finish inside the top 10 for him. He takes 9th across the line. And Pena gonna battle it out with Wasson. It's a drag race to the line, but Edward Pena will hold on to that spot in the top 10. Wasson across the line in 11th. Gomez Beira takes 12th. Dr. Porkchop in 13th place, and Brian DeSantiago with a trip to the pit lane finishes in 14th place. The fans are out in full force tonight, as that is the race session completed here in round number 6. We invite our podium sitters to join us in the green room for a quick chat of how your guys' race went on, as we take it back to our studio here. We have all 3 of our drivers waiting. Welcome in Ricardo Rivera, welcome in Grant Lucarelli, and welcome in Jake Terrell. Congrats on the podium finishes tonight, gents. Ricardo, let's start with you. That race start dropped back a couple of places. Is the Lamborghini just a little sluggish off the line?
Yeah, and particularly in this track without the first chicane, starting in P1, you're gonna be overtaken like 99% of the time. So it was just keep it safe, don't do anything stupid, especially in that long right-hander. It's very easy to lose the car, especially if you're running like super way, very low downforce. So I didn't want to do like any crazy defending at the beginning, because I knew I was going to be overtaken. The Aston Martin, I think, was the fastest of all the cars in the straight line.
Yeah, Grant, this looks like you use that straight line speed to your advantage as much as possible. Tried to hold on to 2nd place, but in the end getting to 3rd. Talk about what it's like defending, going down, exiting the Parabolica with that huge run all the way down to the chicane.
Yeah, I was very fortunate with the setup that Jake was running, that as long as I was ahead of him going into Parabolica, I didn't really have to worry about him in the straight. But by the time that we got to the first chicane, it was like, I was kind of shaking in my boots a little bit, because he's braking quite a bit later than me and has quite a bit more downforce through the turn. So pretty much every lap I was like, okay, as long as I can be ahead through Parabolica, I should be okay. It's going to be tough for him to overtake, but yeah, I bottled it a little bit coming out of the second chicane, or excuse me, the first chicane, and it just kind of gave it away to him. But yeah, overall, speed of the Aston was insane on this track. I think the car is just overall maybe a little bit too good. So, I'm going to keep using it until they do something to it.
Yeah, you may as well, right? And Jake, it was kind of the opposite situation for you in that AMG. You had a monster start, nearly getting all the way up into the race lead from 4th. Talk us through what was going through your head there.
Just on the starting procedure, I was able to tuck up real nicely behind Grant, a little closer than I should have been, I feel like, but I hit the light really well, and the initial acceleration off of the line, the Mercedes was amazing, and then we hit 4th gear, and the Aston Martin just started pulling, and I had a little bit of pace on the Lamborghini, and the Astons were about to start flying by on the left, and I had a gap and I had to take it. So I tucked back in behind Grant just to pull myself along the straight without getting too many lost positions, and that worked out pretty well. I got around Ricardo and kept Mason behind off of the start. But just coming back around on the lap 2 onto the straight, I just felt like a sitting duck. I was running obviously too much wing, and I definitely should have bumped it all the way down to the minimum. But due to this straight line speed of the Astons, having one in front of me and one behind me for the majority of the race, all I had to do was ask nothing but perfect consistency of myself, which I had a couple little tiny bobbles here and there, but like I did the best that I could, and I might not have had the overall fastest lap compared to them, but my pace throughout the entire race was within a couple of tenths of itself every single lap. So I did the best that I could, and I'm happy with the result that I got. And Ricardo's pace here is just absolutely untouchable. So that that battle for P2 was definitely a P1 in my opinion. But yeah, it's just like I just had to be absolutely perfect, and it was an amazing race.
Yeah, you guys certainly provided a good bit of action at the front, especially in that first half of the race. It just seemed like any one of you could have been at any point anywhere in the top 5. The Mustangs were getting pretty close behind. And yeah, great start from you, Jake, getting nearly up all the way up to first. And yeah, Ricardo, good fight back in the first opening laps. Excited to see what happens in the last 2 races. You guys looking forward to the 2 tracks we have to close the season?
I think next week is what, Coda? I'm actually almost looking forward to that.
Almost.
Yeah, I think it's Coda. I think it's Coda.
Coda, and what's next? The other one?
Imola, my favorite track.
Yeah. No, what's it called? The only reason I'm kind of sort of looking forward to Coda is a few weeks ago they had the national circuit, and I'm not saying nothing, but it may or may not have held the Mercedes AMG world record for that week. Just saying. Just saying.
So yeah, so you know the first half of the track, well, the first half of the first sector and the third sector quite well.
Yeah, so if I can clean up that second sector for the whole circuit, we'll
You're gonna be cooking.
Should hopefully have fun.
So yeah, Coda and Imola remain. It's crazy that the season's gone by as quickly as it has, and you 3 providing a good bit of action all the way throughout. So thanks for that. Thanks for joining us for a quick chat as well. Good luck in the remaining 2 races we have left in the season.
Yeah, thanks as always.
Yeah, see you next week.
Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you taking the time, taking a quick chat. And that will do it for us here in round number 6 around Monza in the Curva Grande layout. Tomorrow we go to ACC in the GT3 and GT4 multi-class championship, heading to the Hungaroring for their round 4, getting into the halfway point of the season there. Thursday, we go to the iRacing Multi-Class Championship, which for this season is the GTP and the GT3 mixed, so kind of an IMSA spec running on Thursdays in iRacing. And then on Friday, we go to the Le Mans Ultimate Multi-Class Championship, where they are running 75-minute races with the hypercars and the GT3s. On Sundays, we go back to iRacing for the MX5 Cups. And then on Monday, it is the GT4 Rookies going into round number 5 to start things off next week. And we go to round number 7 at the Circuit of the Americas in the GT3 Sprint Championship in exactly 1 week's time. Thank you all for joining us, watching along, chatting along. Happy to have you here on your Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, wherever you may be joining us from. Always happy to have you here. I have been Kuja Terekov, here for Trackalicious, doing the easy work, whereas all the admins and the managers doing all the hard work in the background to keep things running nice and smooth for us all here at Trackalicious. Stick around for the raid of Mercedes XL, doing some Le Mans Ultimate, grinding their way through the rankings. So stick around, tell them Trackalicious sent you. thank you as always for watching tonight. We will catch you in the next stream. Until then, stay safe. Have a good one.